Friday. Oh, wait. Okay. Are we live? Wait. Okay. Thanks, Wave. You totally failed us. Let's go live now. But I can tell you really want to cut right through this. Yeah, right through this. 'Cause no one knows just what to make of this ball of dust that we're living on. One thing I know is that everyone will get hurt. So before we're gone, let's do this. Let's do this. Before the heavens have crashed to the ground. Let's do this. Let's do this. Before we're silent, let's make such a sound. Oh, let's do this. Okay, that was just weird and awkward. Hi.
Hi.
I
That
don't
was
know.
epic, though. Like the lightning and the music and the.
I couldn't even hear the music, so I'm like, I don't even know if this is working. Anyway,
It was.
technology, yay!
Yay.
Filmmakers, welcome to this live with America Young. We're going to talk all things AD crew relationship, probably a lot about AD director relationship since we're both directors. And if you are here live, as you know, put your questions and comments in the comment section, and we will get back to you soon. Well, it looks like are we starting with the question right away? Let's get to you. Dakota, we'll get to you. Thank you for putting a question so quickly. Let us start with this, because both of us have AD'd here or there for friends or on low budget stuff in our careers. I have worked with amazing ADs and ADs who basically got fired on day one. So I've had the whole gamut. I'm assuming you probably have as well. Let us start with talking about, maybe just keep it positive, kick it off well. In your opinion, as a director, and as a director who's directed television, which is one of the hardest mediums, as far as coming in as a person who a crew's already gelled, you're not the boss of the set like you are in film. What has made the best AD for you?
It's interesting because to your point, like before, I'm coming from the indie world in which I was my own AD, right? And so getting to work on a set with an AD was the best gift. I mean, better than all of the toys and all the camera gear and all this. Having a first AD was the most amazing present I could have ever had. And I remember my first AD was on Blind Spot, and his name was Marco, and he was phenomenal. And you just felt like you were being taken care of. So there was the best thing is the open communication. An AD, a good AD, specifically on these shows, will get you up to speed. They'll be like, all right, so these are the cast issues, right? Like these are the people who take 12 takes to get a performance. These are people who get burn out after 2. These are the people who are usually running late. These are the people who usually don't know their lines. So right off the bat, they're not cast. They also will give you an idea and a lowdown in terms of the environment of the show, and the different interdepartment relationships that maybe are important to navigate. But the most important thing is that they just keep you moving forward. They set up all your appointments. They set up all your meetings. They set up all of the different department head meetings. And they're there to answer your questions. They're your go-to for everything that you might need to know in this unfamiliar environment that you are stepping into.
What do you find is the toughest part about working with an AD as a director?
When our energies don't vibe, I tend to take on other people's energies. And if I'm dealing with an AD that is a screamer or somebody who is a quick temper or shows their stress and irradiates their stress, I take that on, and I'm learning to start to detach myself from that. But I find that that's really hard for me. The best first ADs that I've worked with are move things along. There's an urgency. They're smart. They're on top of things. They're 10 steps ahead. I mean, that's the amazing thing about an AD is they are 10 steps ahead, if not 12. But they're able to maintain that energy of there's a control to them. They're not losing control. They're not screamers. There's a conversation. So that can sometimes be the hardest thing. The other thing is as you're getting to know each other, I mean, like when you're stepping into television, everyone's meeting each other for the first time, right? So they don't know who you are. And when you go back and they know you better, it's a little bit different, but they don't know what kind of director you are. So if you come in and they don't know how you operate, and they start to operate in a way that they operated for the last director, and then you guys are finding that that doesn't work for the two of you, I mean, that's the most amazing thing about a good AD is they'll kind of adjust depending on the personality of the person they're dealing with. So I like to prep. I like to have all my stuff ready to go. I have tons of questions going in. But if they don't know that about me and they're worried that I'm not somebody who preps, which is a lot of people, frankly, then they might come in really strong, pushing really hard, pushing really fast, really worried that we'll get it done in time. And then there's that moment where you realize, oh, okay, we're on the same page. We don't need to work so hard at this, you know?
I think that's some important point to is the prep for anything when it comes to features or TV, because there's nothing worse than coming in and your team not thinking you have your shit together. Like, I think the more they see you got it and you know what you're doing and there's a plan, the more relaxed everybody is. At least, for the most part.
Yeah.
So when you've worked as an AD in the past, even on some of these, like, I'm pretty sure you were AD on, was it a web? It was a feature that I was producing, if I remember correctly. You were the AD on Brendan's thing.
Yeah, for the
Yeah.
Los Angeles. Yeah.
Yeah. So talk about, so when you're in indie film, because as we know, indie film is one of the toughest beasts because you never have enough money. You never have enough time. There's never enough of anything. And it's a constant struggle to make things look good and get ahead. And in your case, you were also working with a star, like a director who was the star of the movie. So I think that he had to rely on you a lot for performance as well. Can you talk about when you're the AD in that role and you're a director normally, so you kind of get it? Where's one of the fine lines is like, when do you bite your tongue? How much do you help out?
Yeah.
I work a lot with directors who are ADs. Kate Fogarty is one of my favorite ADs I work with, but she's a director and she's so good at, like, she never oversteps. It's tough. Can you talk a little bit about that and how that was for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, the first thing that I'll say is that in that situation, I feel like I was a fraction of an AD. Now that I know the full scope of what an AD is, having worked with professional ones, I definitely came into that role a little ignorant. So I don't even think I did the call sheets. I mean, I think Brendan is remarkable and was doing almost everything, and I just basically showed up on the day. We would prep ahead of time, but my job on the day was just to keep everything rolling and keep everything on track, and keep morale up and all that kind of stuff. But like, it's a tough line because I come from stunt coordinating also, right? And still now I'll step in and I'll help stunt coordinate people. Specifically, I love to help out female filmmakers with their stuff. So like, I'll come in even now that I've been directing and I'll help stunt coordinate. And there is that fine line of like, it needs to be clear to them that I am not interested in their job. I am here to support them. I'm here for you. It is your vision. And so there's a point where you might make suggestions, but there's always a constant deferment, right? There's just like, if they ask you what your opinion is, you give it. If not, you might say, can I pitch something to you? How about this? What do you think? Does that fit your vision? Does that fit it's a constant deferment to them because it's really important to me that they don't feel like they have to, there's a constant power struggle coming from knowing my background and knowing where I come from. I want them to know I'm there fully for them and that there's no ego in it. And the only time that I will ever step up is when I think that there's something they're going to regret for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, you really want to get this coverage? I promise you're going to want this in post. I promise. Please just get it for yourself. Or that take didn't work, and this is why. And just do it for yourself. Like those are the only times that I'll step up. And so for with Brendan, whenever he was on camera, he and I would discuss what he was going for. So again, it's about what he wants, right? And then what I would let him know when I felt like he had achieved it. And then maybe I would say, hey, maybe you want to give yourself an option for a variety if you try it this way. And if you agreed, then we would do it. But in that particular case, and I was just done coordinating something a couple weeks ago, and every step of the way, I kept saying, okay, my understanding is it's this. Is this what you're trying to get across with this fight? Yes? Great. Okay, so this is how I would recommend doing it. Does that sound right for you? Great. And then I would go and like translate that. So it's about having respect for the people you're working for. It's really easy to not step over that line when you respect the people you're working for. Now, if you're working for people who you have no respect for, that gets so much harder. Like if you're working with people who have not done their homework, who don't have a vision, who don't collaborate, and you're just like, oh, what is wrong with you? That makes it harder. So I keep that in mind when I'm dealing with having a gift of a first AD, of making sure that I'm treating them with respect, that I'm giving them as much information as they can, and let them know who I am so that they know they can relax a little with me. I'm definitely not going to be one of those directors who gets fixated on an insert shot and spends 6 hours doing it, right? I'm definitely much better at knowing like the value of a shot, how much I'm actually going to use. I've edited, I mean, you and I both, right, coming from indie, we've edited all our own stuff. So you know what's going to end up in the edit, more or less. You know what has more value in the edit. You know where things land. So trying to make sure that they know that I am somebody that they can relax a little bit around and be honest with.
When it comes to there's a lot of we'll just say scary stories I've heard, especially in the TV world, where you have director DP headbutting, mostly because the DP has been there. They feel like they know the show better than you. And there's such a fine line of being the diplomat as the director when you're there. How do you find the AD helps that situation or hurts it in some cases, I'm sure?
I'm so happy to say I haven't been in that situation. I have been really lucky to work with just awesome collaborative DPs.
Love hearing that.
Oh, I'm so happy to say. That being said, I have friends who have worked with a variety of situations. Ones in which the DP is not help or the AD is not helpful at all and undermines the director every step of the way. Ones in which the AD acts as a mediator between the two and helps as a translator. So it really just depends on the set and the bosses, right? The number one, so the number one actor on the set, and then the showrunners, and then the way that the community that they encourage. And I have worked with showrunners or under showrunners who encourage a community of art first, and no real power struggles, which has been really great. But I have worked with friends. I have friends who have worked with DPs that have left them in tears. And I'm speaking male directors who have had DPs that have left them in tears. And then for the same thing with first ADs, right? And it's got to be, the thing that I realize is it's got to be really, really stressful for the TV show, because every single time they have a new director in that they've never worked with before, they're like, what fresh hell is this?
Yeah.
Who is this person going to be? Is this person going to make us work in overtime doing dumb shit that we know isn't going to be our show? Or is this somebody who's going to be efficient and collaborative and listen to us and get us out on at a decent hour, and make a good show that we can be proud of? And so they normally say that they can tell by Tech Scout who this director is going to be.
Oh, interesting.
And if the director's not, they can tell. And if they feel like this director is not going to be good, they'll just plan on their own plan moving forward, unofficially, of course. But they're just like, all right, we're going to have to pull through. The next 8 days are going to be a nightmare. We're going to have to pull through. This person doesn't know what they're doing. And I think that a lot of it falls back to your point, falls to the DP and the first AD to get it through that 8 days if the director who shows up doesn't have what they need.
Do you feel like, and because of that, that's why, like, do you feel like ADs are always going to take the crew's best interest in mind over a director's in TV? Because I feel like in film, it's kind of the opposite for the most part.
Do you feel like they need to be split, right? Like I think it's a really hard place to be because they are there as the ally for the director and the support of the director, but they also then probably, and I can't speak from personal experience on this because I've never been in this position, but I would assume if I were in that position, I would want to support the director. That is my job, part of the job, a fraction of the job
Right.
description. But also, if that director is lacking, then I'm going to have to find a need to fill in for that person. And so then that does put them in a really awkward place of my crew is my family and the director is the guest. It's a really weird place to be. It's a really
Yeah.
weird place to be. I can only imagine.
Yeah. TV's such an interesting beast. I look forward to that. As far as film, though, I feel like my best ADs have been, like you said, they're kind of in both. They're in the crew and the director's corner. They kind of keep the piece on set. They keep things moving. Um, for me, I feel like communication is the key. Like I want my AD always communicating to me. I'm always communicating to them. It's probably hard as hell if you're an AD that has a crew or especially a director who's not telling you what's on their mind and what's going on, which I've heard horror stories that directors do that, which I'm like, why are you a director? But anyway, I digress. So we have the crew, we have the AD crew relationship, we have the AD director relationship. Let's talk about what you feel like makes, I'm obviously
And
prep. Oh, go ahead.
I was also going to say the ADs are torn, right? Because they've got to report to the crew, the director, and then the producers. Right? Because they've got the producers breathing down their neck. When was your first shot off? When was your last shot? How much, blah, 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 blah. Like, I mean, how many takes did they take? Like, especially on television, and I'm sure on film, they're the point person for all of the departments, right? And so they have three bosses. So I didn't mean to interrupt, but I just
No,
wanted
no,
to make
no.
sure.
I love that. I was just going to say, like, as far as I know, you talked about prep being something that helps establish a good relationship. Is there anything else you do um, before you come to set? Let's talk TV specifically because it is such a different beast. Then we can back up for film.
Okay.
So for TV, you're going to go in and direct a show that you haven't directed yet, so nobody knows you. What do you do to make sure you're setting the right tone with your AD? Is there anything you do specifically?
I like to come in with a lot of questions, specifically not about specifically like the script, but about the show. How does this work? Who is this person? What's this relationship? I like to explain to them that I come from the indie world and I'm used to first ADing myself. So the best treat that they could give me is to me not have to think about that as much. But then I also ask for them to be honest with me about that kind of thing. But for the most part, it's just the proof is in the pudding, right? Like, and what does that phrase even mean? I don't even know what it is. But like I can say all this stuff, like I like to prep and I like to be ready and I like to, but until they see
Yeah.
it, it's still not going to be quite the same experience until they see how you operate, until they see how you communicate. Because the thing that I will say is that we as an industry are used to a certain type of leader, right? Which is definitely a more aggressive take over, take charge, not listen to other people type leader, right? This has been the traditional director, the yellers and the temper tantrums and the that kind of thing. And so, and I'm not even making it's not even specifically about gender. It's just that's how we've identified our leaders is the really bossy asshole ones. And so when you come in and you're not that way and you listen at first and you absorb and you try to figure out your surroundings so you know how to navigate them, you come in with a clear choice and a clear vision. Sometimes that freaks people out because they're just like, oh, she didn't just come in and smash a bunch of stuff and pee on stuff to claim her territory. I don't know how she's going to be able to control a set. Like that does
Right.
freak people out. And I've had people say that to me, right? Where like at first I could feel them being very antsy and then they see me on set and they go, oh, oh, this worked. This is good. So ultimately it's just jumping right in, not feeling like you have anything to prove. Just do your job and be ready and do it well. And then eventually people go, okay, okay, they know what they're doing, you know?
That reminded me of I totally forgot I have an AD this film once for a bunch of people I did not know. It was one of those, I needed cash when I was younger kind of thing. Um, and I remember at the end of the shoot, we were wrapped, the director coming over and go, I don't know how you kept us on time and schedule. You never talked above a whisper.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, it's not about the yelling. It's about
No.
time management and like
Yeah.
making sure we know, like, as long as we have a plan, and if we lose our plan and we're just always, I'm always like, you said we edit and stuff. So I'm always thinking ahead. I'm always like, what's next? What do we still need? What have we got? My brain can't stop. That's why I'm exhausted at the end of a shoot day, because
Yes.
it's just constant going.
Yeah.
I'm not checking off a list. And so I was taking those director skills to their set as an AD. And yeah, I never once, I don't think I ever, like, half the people may not have even known I was the AD because I was working with the director and the crew I needed to as
Right.
close as possible.
And you're not yelling, and you're going up to people going, "Hey, you ready for this? Great. All right, we're going to need you in 5." Like, you're communicating, you're
Mhm.
ahead of it, you're anticipating everything. And I also come to it with the bait. And again, this might be so naive, but in my experience, this is not. Most people want to do a good job. Most
Yeah.
people are here because they want to be here. Whether you're on an indie film because they're doing it for the passion of it or the experience or whatever, or you're on a higher budget thing where they're doing it for the paycheck, but they're still artists for the most part, and they still want it to be good. They still want to contribute. Like, I don't know that you would need to scream at people, right? Like, you would just go up to them and be like, "Hey, man, I need you on set right now. You coming? Great.
Yeah.
I love it."
Well, and
You
it's
know?
never, if you look at the history of Hollywood, being the screamy guy has never gotten anything done. Sure, it's motivated people to do their job because they didn't want to be fired. But I prefer to motivate people to do their job because they
So,
enjoy what they're doing.
yeah. Yeah.
Imagine that.
God forbid.
I
You
mean, I've
know?
had my days. I'm not gonna lie. I've had days on set because, as you know, in the indie world, if someone isn't doing their job, it can be really painful because now
Yeah.
your whole day is behind, or you can't get that shot because that DP or whoever is like futzing around and not doing their job or taking something serious. It's easy to lose your temper. That's why I'm so appreciative of the ADs who are so calm. Like, I don't think I've ever seen Kate Fogarty lose her temper ever. And I'm just like, I don't know how she stays
I
so
do
calm
it.
the whole time.
Yeah.
But it makes us calmer as directors, which is the
Oh, you
magic.
need it. You need it because the minute you see your AD stressed out, you're gonna start to stress, right? And I think a lot of it also comes to making sure that the people you have on your crew like work in your energy. That sounds so LA,
No,
but like,
no, but
but
it's true.
but
It's
you have the
important.
same priorities, right? So, like,
Mhm.
if you're working with, you just said the thing about the DP that's fiddling around with or whatever. If you're working with a DP who has a different value set than you do in terms of what a good shot is and how long a shot should take to be set up, that's going to stress you out and your first AD out a lot more, right? Then if you're working with a DP where you both have the same value of like, what's the shot? How long do we need to spend on it? What's the value of this? And that kind of thing. And it's the same thing with a first AD, like being able to sit down with your first AD and saying, look, this scene means nothing. This is an info dump. Let's get through it as fast as possible. This scene, I'm pretty sure they're going to cut because of this, and this. But this scene, I want all of my time on this scene. And so then that way you have that conversation with them where you're like, you gave them each the same amount of time to shoot. That's fine. This scene, I'm going to take all that time. These 2 scenes we're going to do very quickly, just so you know, don't panic that this is going to take longer. And so having that communication up ahead of time, which comes from your own prep of understanding your script and understanding what's important and what's not important, and being able to communicate to them is key, so that they can do their job and they're not doing it blind. You
Yeah.
know, if they're doing it blind, if they're guessing, all they have is with how they would do it. Right. So then, of course, you're going to feel like your toes are being stepped on if they're doing it the way they would do it because they don't have the information of how you would do it. So I always think communication is everything.
It really is. I think everything comes down to communication and hiring. And I don't want to gloss over what you said because I think that it's so important to hire based on your vibe.
Yes.
Now, in TV, it's different. You're walking into somebody else's world. But in film, as the director, and indie especially, I know you know this as well. Often you're hired as the hired gun director, and the producers want to hire all the crew, and they want to hire. They do this half the time. I've been hired to direct features that have already been cast. Like they fired their director and I've come in, which is, I guess, a lot like TV. But if you have if you can come on as a director for your feature film as an indie director, you need to come on first.
Yeah.
And I think Jen McGowan recently said this, and it's so freaking true, where it's like, you should pick a project based on producers more than on material, because material can be approved upon, producers cannot be.
That's great.
And so if you're excited to be like, my first, well, actually my second feature, the first feature I was ever hired on, I was like, I'll take anything. It's someone else is hiring me. And I get that mentality, but I really want to have filmmakers take a step back and go, is this worth it if I'm not able to hire the crew that I think is worth it? And at the very least, which is what I pushed for, is if you have everybody else hired, let me hire my AD. Because it's such an important position. They're at your side. They've got your back. And again, this is film. We're talking about TV.
Right. No, I absolutely agree. Like for me, the do or dies are the first AD, the DP, and the editor. And one of the things I've talked about with my agent is that, like, while I might not always get to have final say on those department heads, either they're not available or the producers or he's like, have your list of your top 5. And then these are your pre-approved list. And then they have to choose in your contract, make sure that they have to choose out of your top 5. Because I have worked with phenomenally talented people, like truly talented people, that we don't get each other at all, right? At all. And we can respect each other for who we are and what we approve and what we do. But when it comes down to just saying, hey, set up a close up here, and you go and see what they set up, you're like, that's what you think is the close up? What? Like, it's as basic as that, right? And so that means extra communication. Whereas I've worked with DPs where I've just been like, I'm thinking we'll set up a close up here on this lens or whatever. And then I set it up and I'm like, oh, it's even better than I thought. Or that's exactly what I thought. And so it's just as simple as having that common language. And so some of the things I've started to ask, which you would think is a no brainer, but it was a new discovery for me. It's like, what are your favorite movies? What are movies that shaped you? Right. Because I'm a Indiana Jones, Back to the Future, Tremors kind of girl. And I also grew up on the old black and white movies, right? With Katharine Hepburn and Jimmy Stewart, which are all story based and entertainment and whatever. But if you come at me with something like Sicario, I'll be like, oh, it's a damn good movie. We're not going to like each other. we're not going to see eye to eye on this. Yeah. And if there's an acknowledgement of that's a damn good movie, and them saying to you, yes, that's a damn good movie, and I see the value in it, then maybe the two of us together bring something. And I've segued off onto DPs, and I don't.
Well, I think it's important because the DP AD director relationship, it's really a throuple, like you're married together. And you had mentioned, the vibe from the beginning. Another important part of that is, even if you love prep and you love, like, Soma Helmi preps like no one I've ever known in my life. And it's exhausting to me. But that's why her shit looks so good, right? But if she has a DP who doesn't want to sit and talk prep and go through all this stuff, they're not going to work well. And whereas I'm very fast on set, I like to move fast. So I don't want a DP who's going to, talk with his buds and like play with his lenses. No, I want someone who's like me, who has that energy. Like, let's go. Yeah. What else can we get? Let's go. We're cornholio together.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, that's what I loved about the TV pace, is I definitely like that pace. And I've worked with phenomenal DPs that make this gorgeous cinematic masterpiece on a TV pace, right? So like, I know now when I deal with other DPs where it's just like, you guys could move faster and still make this look good.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, but it's got to be the same energy.
I know we've kind of veered into DPs, but like I said, I think that's important that you're setting yourself up for success. And then if you're on a TV set where you didn't get to pick your DP or your crew or anybody, then it's still knowing what your DP style is. I think that's going to help you, and it's going to help the whole set moves more seamless, which is going to help your AD in the long run. And I think if anybody's gotten anything from this half hour, it's do whatever the fuck you can to make your AD's life much
Yeah.
better because they are doing a lot. They're responsible for more than you think. They are not your freaking secretary. They are running the set. I mean, that is their job.
Yeah, I mean, and they're reporting to 3 different sections of production at the same time. They've got to have all 3 of those in their heads at all time. Plus, they've got their own people that report to them, and their seconds and their seconds, and they're figuring out the schedule, and they're figuring out that day, and they're moving things around like a constant chessboard, and they're managing all kinds of personalities. And sometimes you have an AD that manages the different personalities, and then sometimes you have an AD where everybody manages around them. So it's a completely different energy, but yeah, it's an invaluable relationship. And if you're hiring your first AD, and you guys need to jive energetically.
I think that's a wonderful way to end. I told you this half hour was going to go fast.
Oh, fast! Oh my gosh!
Didn't even have time for questions. But thank you all for attending live, and keep an eye out on June 3rd for the next newsletter that's going to tell you all the fun things coming up, including a live event in New York City. Bye.